Amendments. There are situations where you file a tax form and some information on the form needs to be changed after it is submitted. 1099 Prep allows corrected and negated forms in most situations to allow for these amendments. Keep in mind, once a form is submitted, it cannot be recalled. You must wait for the initial form to be accepted before any changes can be made. There are two ways to amend a tax form. The first is a correction. This is when you need to change the information on the tax form or the recipient's name or address. To change the recipient's TIN, you will need to use the second type of amendment. The second type of amendment is a negation. This is used when any of the payer information or the recipient's TIN is incorrect. This also applies to filing the wrong tax form, such as a 1099 MISC instead of a 1099 NEC. Note this is the process for federal forms. State forms are not marked accepted or rejected. The status for state reconciliation forms is filed to state. These forms can be reopened, edited, and resubmitted, but it is recommended the users check with the state to confirm the status of additional submissions. Corrections. A correction is when you need to update recipient information beside the TIN or the information on the tax form. With corrections, acknowledgement of the prior submission is required before moving to the next step in the process. Each form submission will have a charge associated with it in 1099 Prep. You can correct all federal recipient forms. However, you cannot correct a W-2C. You can correct a 1099 form as many times as needed. When a negation is required, log into 1099 Prep and navigate to the form in question. Once the form is identified and in accepted status, there will be an action for correction. Clicking this action will create a form in draft status. If changes to recipient information is required, all forms for the recipient need to be corrected before the changes can be made to the recipient. If changes to the recipient form are required, use the Edit feature for forms. Once all information is updated, follow the submission process to submit the corrected forms. See the submission video for details. Negations. A negation is when any of the payer information is incorrect, or the recipient's TIN is incorrect, or when you file the wrong tax form, such as a 1099 MISC instead of a 1099 NEC. With negations, acknowledgement of the prior submission is required before moving to the next step in the process. Each form submission will have a charge associated with it in 1099 Prep. You can negate all 1099 forms, but you cannot negate a W-2 or 1042S. When a form requires negation, the process is similar to correction. Once the form is identified and in accepted status, there will be an action for negate. Clicking this action will create a form in draft negation status. This is a special type of correction that will zero numeric fields and cannot be edited by the user. If changes to payer information are required, all forms for the payer need to be negated before the changes can be made to the payer. For the recipient TIN number, all forms for the recipient need to be negated before the changes can be made to the recipient. Once all information is updated, follow the submission process to submit the negated forms. See the submission video for details. In some cases, the negation is the end of the filing process. In other cases, a follow-up submission is required to provide additional information. If the second scenario applies, the follow-up submission cannot be submitted until the negation is accepted. Once the form is accepted, navigate to the forms that were negated and click the reset icon to restore the form to the draft state. Do not attempt to add a new form of the same type. Once the form is reset, make the next set of changes and follow the submission process to submit all the negated forms. See the submission video for details. With customers that require amendments, using the final status for the final form report or recipient form report will create the most recent copies of all submitted forms regardless of cart. If a form has been amended, only the most recent version will be included. This allows the generation of a report documenting what has been submitted for filing and providing accurate information for both payers and recipients. Keep in mind, 1099 Prep submissions, including amendments, are only allowed for the current filing year. The IRS will close for submissions in November, so make sure filings are completed. If a deadline is missed, the sooner the form is submitted, the lower the penalty. Penalties increase over time, so submit forms as soon as possible. With the amendment process, 1099 Prep simplifies the filing process, empowering you to prepare, manage, and submit forms with confidence. For more tips and resources, Check out our support portal, training materials, and quick links available to keep your filing on track.